Bat music.
He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Hello and welcome once again to Bat Minute Returns, the podcast where we come face to face. It's finally here. With Tim Burton's 1992 Batman sequel, Batman Returns, 1 minute at a time. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
And here to commit my crime in deadly time, it is I, John Parker.
And once again, for the final time this week, we are joined by the people you heard in the previous two episodes, Rikky Wiley and Ash Lerczak.
Hello.
G'day.
You've become Australian all of a sudden. Okay. We can roll with that.
And yeah, so we're just gonna... This is like a big episode for us, because I think we've alluded to this song about 50 times throughout the show. But now it's finally playing. We can finally talk about friggin' Susie Sue for once.
Susie Sue? I thought it was Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. That would have
also been fantastic.
How boss would have been if that had kicked in at that moment.
Get knocked out. I always associate that song... This is going to be the weirdest thing ever. With the FIFA 98 World Cup game. Because it was on the soundtrack. And I used to play. And I had the Road to World Cup as well. So I would play that. And you could like take it forward. And I won the World Cup as Yemen.
That's an achievement you can take to your grave. That mate.
Oh yeah.
I always think that song and Song 2 by Blur were on like the menu screens for 1,000 football computer games.
Every game. Yeah,
I think they're both pretty synonymous with just the PlayStation 1.
Yeah,
whatever was out with the PlayStation 1. One of those tunes was in there somewhere. But anyway, we're here to talk about minute 96 of Batman Returns.
96? Oh, wait a minute.
Nah. I was all raging too. It's like, didn't Max Shrek do something about 96 earlier, but now it was 86. And now we missed that opportunity to make a reference to that. But oh well.
Alas.
But this minute begins with Bruce observing the entrance of an enchantress. And it ends with 1 minute later with Selina saying she's getting semi-hard. Which is, okay. I mean, it's an amorous minute. We can't deny that. So
it's a very intimate end to the minute.
Yeah. But yeah, of course, the minute begins with, two things happen simultaneously. Where, of course, we get the beginning of, Face to Face by Susie Sue, but then there's also Bruce looks over, and as you mentioned briefly last minute, John, you see this skeleton-clad, sort of cavalier-looking fella on the steps there. It's one of those things, actually, because I took a particular note of this guy, because he's a direct reference to something.
Oh.
Is it Edgar Allan Poe's Mask of the Red Death? Because that's what my suspicion...
That is the first part of the reference.
I got it in there.
Wait, there's multi-parts to this reference.
Oh yeah, this is like a kind of like I may be sort of adding on my own stuff at the end, but there's definitely it's a direct reference to a particular thing. But yeah, so Bruce looks over. There's a guy dressed as the Red Death from Edgar Allan Poe's Mask of the Red Death. But this thing of the guy standing on the steps and then turning and walking away is a reference to Lon Chaney's character in The Phantom of the Opera, who of course was The Phantom of the Opera, during the Bal Mask scene in that, where he appears in a virtually identical costume, dressed as the Red Death from Mask of the Red Death, and he turns and walks away in an identical fashion.
Do you think that's why Christopher Walken was going to have a red mask in that script, the draft script that you mentioned in the last one?
Well, it could be.
That's got to be it. Come on. I mean, this is Tim Burton. Not only does he not leave anything up to chance, that's a movie he's intimate with. Come on.
But it's, I also took it as well that, it's a nice, I was potentially looking into it a bit deeper than Tim Burton was intending, because the fact that like when the guy walks away, it reveals Selina Kyle, and so the fact that you're kind of linking Selina Kyle with a character played by Lon Chaney. Of course, Lon Chaney was referenced earlier in the movie because the Penguin is partially based on Lon Chaney's character from London After Midnight, and physical appearance and just character and whatnot. But of course, the character that they're referencing in the scene is Lon Chaney's The Phantom of the Opera, and The Phantom of the Opera was, of course, referenced multiple times in the previous movie as being kind of Batman, essentially. Like, there's loads of stuff, that particularly when he brings Vicky to the Batcave. She's trying to look at it in the mask and stuff, and it's framed identically to the reveal of his face in the 1925 Phantom movie and stuff. So I was kind of thinking, like, is there some sort of way of saying that they're linking, through Lon Chaney and Phantom of the Opera, they're linking Selina, the Penguin, and Batman as being like three of a kind in a weird way.
Ooh, I like that. Multifaceted being.
Yeah, but that could also just be me being like, that's definitely a thing. And if I told that to Tim Burton, he'd be like, what? No.
I also think directly the Mask of the Red Death thing, because it's rich people having a ball, the same kind of thing is in that story. And they were sort of hid off in this mansion or whatever, trying to escape a plague, and the Mask of the Red Death is like the harbinger of the illness getting into the building, kind of thing. And the way that Selina sort of appears from behind the Mask of the Red Death, it's like Batman's Batman life coming into his Bruce Wayne life, like to infect it in the same sort of way.
Oh wow, Contagion!
And did you also notice the fact that he's
infecting him?
Have you also noticed that he turns around twice and it's really annoying?
Unless from the far shot, he's looking at Bruce and then he turns away, and then it cuts to the close-up shot and he's looking back at Bruce again and then he turns away, which could either be a continuity mistake or absolutely hilarious behavior on behalf of that one guy. Just go, I'm looking at you, and I'm turning away, and I'm looking at you.
It's just bizarre as well, because of the fact he is, in that long shot, he is standing staring at Bruce for ages. And it's kind of like, does he know him?
Yeah.
Is this another supervillain who was planning to do something else at this party? And then he gets usurped when the Penguin shows up?
He has to bide his time. He's like, I'll be back in about 6, 7, 8 movies.
The creepy rich people in tuxedos and masks staring at the main character. It just, even though this was like 9 years before, or 7 years beforehand, like your mind immediately jumps to Eyes Wide Shut now.
Oh yeah,
because like that's the thing now. It's just like, even with the Batman storylines of introducing like the Court of Owls and stuff. And it's just like rich people, tuxedos, masks. Is there going to be an orgy here? Because
there better be a buffet at least.
I only read Court of Owls for the first time the other day. When I had my vasectomy, I just sat in the hospital reading Court of Owls on Kindle Unlimited.
Why not?
Oh.
It was great. It was great. Best Batman I've read in forever.
Now I feel obliged to review it as a bonus episode.
Oh, you definitely.
I did actually. Yeah, I do have the. It's one of those things though, because it's like you get the proper, like, oh, this is the entire Court of Owls saga, whatnot, in a whole compendium.
Oh yeah.
But then even at that, there was apparently when that was coming out, there was like issues of Batgirl and like Nightwing and stuff like that, where they were taking on the Court of Owls that are alluded to in the book.
Ooh.
That were entire storylines on themselves that aren't in the whole thing, which is really frustrating. It's like, just put the whole thing together for Christ's sake. But
the thing that I thought was good about that, and I think that's what both of these Tim Burton films get right. And all the best Batman does is best Batman comics do. Yeah, is that Gotham City itself is a bigger part of the appeal than Batman as an individual character. Like, both in the way it looks, but also like you kind of feel like Gotham City culture, which is a very odd thing to be able to convey in a comic series or a film. But it's got its own unique feel to it, and it's I think it's a similar thing to, I don't know if anyone ever read much Judge Dredd, but that was the cool thing about Judge Dredd as well, was Mega City 1 was its own thing, and you felt like you could move away from the key characters and you could tell stories, and you really felt like the way that it was set, that really interesting stories were constantly going on all around, and you could have the main character only come in at the end for a tiny bit of it, and you could still tell fantastic stories because the setting was that interesting.
I do remember one of the 2000 AD stories I distinctly remember was, I think at the beginning of the issue, Dredd, he's arresting a guy for like a really minor crime, like, you know, as Judge Dredd will do. And he handcuffs him to like a railing, and then he has to go off and do something else. And the rest of the entire comic is the guy just handcuffed to the railing, and the rest of the city just dumping on him. Like, everything happens to him. People come back just beating the crap out of him, like sexually abusing him. Like, but it's all done in that bizarre Judge Dredd, you know, dark comic way. But like the end of the issue, he's just a complete husk of a human, just kind of still shackled this thing. And Dredd comes back, and he's just like, well, you know, looks like they really did a number on you. 20 years on an ISO cube. Like, he still completely lays into the guy and stuff.
As Selina steps out from behind the masked man that you mentioned, she really, like, quite deliberately does like a slinky cat prowl over to Bruce.
Oh yeah,
it's like it's all shoulder blades and everything. It's she really pulls it off.
This whole scene, I mean, we're jumping kind of through the minute, but the way she walks over to him and looks at him, and the way he's looking at her, it's very slow paced, very slow. It's sexual, it's sensual. It's not just a walk; it's kind of like seduction from both parties as well, because he, you know, he's not just like, oh, Selina, you know, like, he's the same. He's like, oh, I'm gonna play this cool.
It's kind of one of the bizarre things in that. We'll get to it obviously next week when we'll reveal why exactly Selina's there and stuff. You know, she's a woman with a plan and stuff. But this is actually her. Even though every time we've seen Selina Kyle outside the Catwoman costume since she fell out that window, she's been sort of deranged looking. She's always had the big mess of hair. She just looks like a woman doesn't care anymore. But this is her most composed in a while, where the hair is perfect, the makeup's perfect and stuff. But this is probably her at her most deranged, because she is like, oh yeah, I am here to kill Max Schreck, and it's a suicide mission, basically. She's not going to get out of this. Like, she's going to go in there, shoot that guy, and then whatever happens and stuff. She doesn't seem to care anymore. So it's kind of an odd to have the contrast between, like, when she was Catwoman and she was out doing freewheeling crazy stuff and she had the wild hair and stuff. She's still almost kind of had it more together than she does in this moment, when she is actually perfectly poised and just ready to... This
is like what John was saying. She's there as Catwoman in disguise, isn't she? So
yes.
Oh yeah,
behaving appropriately.
Yeah,
I guess
she's in disguise as Selina Kyle. Yeah,
who wouldn't act like
totally.
that?
This is her outfit for the party in a way.
But
Selina is the costume.
But also, I think I feel like this scene came about. I think the idea for this scene must have been in somebody's head for a long time, and how they actually worked it into the film came along later. The inversion of having our two masked characters, which is the elephant in the room that we haven't. There's no elephant in the room, but it's the obvious thing about this scene that we haven't mentioned. Yeah, it's a.
I mean, we haven't looked. There could be a guy dressed as an elephant.
But it's our two characters who we know as being masked characters, and they're not in masks, and everybody else in the room, and there are many dozens of people, they're all in masks. And obviously there's a legitimate reason for that, and that they're having a masked ball. But I also kind of feel it's like we were talking about Super Freak before, and the Tim Burton is somebody who obviously relates primarily to freaks and outsiders, and I feel like we're seeing the normies through the outsiders' eyes. This is what, when you're an outsider like Batman or Catwoman, this is what everybody else looks like. Everybody else looks like they're the fake version of themselves, and it's only these few masked people who actually seem to be enacting their true selves. So weirdly, the only way I feel like I can articulate it, and I don't think this is a right metaphor, it's almost like the ring wraith world in Lord of the Rings. Like, this is the world that these guys are. This is what they're seeing all the time in a metaphorical sense.
That's again that because every costume then could become symbolic of the identity of the person. So again, like they see Max Shrek, he's a guy with a big Sultan hat and a Freemason, Eye of Providence emblazoned right in his head and stuff. Because that's the way Bruce Wayne views him, is like as this big glitzy hotshot guy who's linked to secret goings on behind the scenes and stuff. And
then you've got animals in there of people just kind of indulging their baser instincts, or people trying to self-aggrandize themselves, dressed as monuments and that type of thing.
Yeah. That's a really good. That's a really good take on the scene.
Yeah, I love it. Bloody hell.
I feel bad now because my observation after that then is the guy coming down the stairs behind Selina, and this is appropriate comment to ask. Kind of reminds me of Ash. This guy, I don't know what it is. The white tux, the kind of way he's standing. I don't know if he took off that headgear and it was current guest Ash underneath. I'd be like, oh my god, he's done it again.
That's really why we've invited you on, Ash, to confirm or deny.
Which guy is this? What's he got on his head?
Wait for it to cycle back around again, and we'll probably see him in a second.
It was like the reveal of Selina, and there's a guy comes behind her with a kind of gold thing in his head.
Yep, it looks like good old Doc Horror
yourself.
We find out then Ash is like, what was this, 92? Oh no, that was me. Yeah, I remember going to that party.
I got some jobs on the side. Yeah, I needed to make some money.
Yeah, that was me as a small boy.
This is before they break out the karaoke.
Yes. That's the next scene. That's the next minute. I mean, you guys wouldn't know. You've not seen that yet. But
Well, they couldn't just hear. Now you hear the orchestra starts playing the World at War theme.
I was like, oh, you beat me to it. Commissioner Gordon gets up.
Well, speaking of music, we've put it off for far too long. We've got to talk about it. Susie and the Banshees are playing. Oh my god, this is amazing. This is so good. I'm so excited. Yes, one of my favorite bands of all time, and what a song.
Wouldn't it have worked equally well if they'd used the song from the dream sequence in Labyrinth?
As the world falls down.
Yes, I think it probably would have worked, to be honest. But having said that, the lyrics...
That was the first film I actually sat through with my daughter. I think all the way through was last week. We watched Labyrinth together.
Really?
It was really good. And I always thought I knew what was going on in Labyrinth. And I had to keep asking Julie, why is that like that? Why is that happening like that? Why is that happening
You know
like
why
that
is?
Don't want to get too far into it. Why is that?
You're too...
Because she went through women's...
Oh, no, because every single person watching that movie is too distracted by David Bowie's crotch.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It's very in your face.
We were watching the Blu-ray all Bowie crotch version.
Oh, extra crotch scenes, in fact.
I think it's like Bowie in that movie is such a glory hog. It's like if you're not watching his crotch, you're mesmerized by that weird trick he does with the ball. I was like, holy crap, just let Jennifer Connelly breathe on screen for 10 seconds.
No! It's all about me.
Have you seen how they did the ball thing?
It's a different person, isn't it?
Yeah, the guy behind him.
With his arm coming through David Bowie's armpit, like an expert ball twiddler.
Ball twiddler, yes, that wonderful profession.
That guy deserves even more credit, though, because the thing was amazing just in itself. But then realized that he was stuck behind David Bowie as he's doing it.
Not seeing what he's up to.
You can't see what you're...
Just the fact that you're in your head the whole time, you're like, I am wrapped around David Bowie. Like, that enough would be enough to make you nervous.
Try to concentrate.
Yeah.
It has to look like David Bowie's arms.
Well, you say, though, that song would work as well, and I think it would be fantastic, but the lyrics in this are very relevant to the movie. While still working as like a genuine Banshees track, which I think is the best thing about it. Because this doesn't feel like it was made for a film at all. It's a proper song that's in the movie, but still references the movie. That's such a hard thing to pull off.
Yeah. Well, it's good that I think that she made it in tandem with Danny Elfman, which is why it's got the...
Oh, really?
The Catwoman refrain going throughout the whole thing and stuff.
Yeah, there's all kinds of little tiny things. Like the lyrics really do reference the movie in a subtle way. Like you've got face to face, my lovely foe, mouth to mouth, raining heaven's blows, hand on heart, tic-tac-toe, under the stars, naked as we flow, cheek to cheek, the bittersweet, commit your crime in your deadly time. I love that. I think that's
It
amazing.
is nice and subtle. It's a long way away from Will Smith's Men in Black.
Also an amazing song.
That's the thing though, in saying that like, oh, it's so carefully crafted into the movie, and it obviously, it was a song made for this scene pretty much. I find it so weird that mutual friend of all of us, that when I mentioned to Jimmy at one point that this is a song, it's the song from Batman Returns, he's like, that's in Batman Returns. And apparently he's a huge fan, obviously a huge fan of Susie Sue in general, and loved this song, and he never knew that this was written for Batman Returns.
Well, there you go. That's perfect then. It's a proper Banshees track. It's not like, oh, that's a movie song.
I never got into Susie and the Banshees at
Get
all. Throughout all of my, because I was into all the surrounding acts, The Cure and Joy Division and all that type of thing. Never got into Susie Sue, but then I never liked nor disliked, never paid attention at all. And suddenly, when I was, I think, 32, about 3 or 4 years ago, I got the album Juju.
Oh yes.
And I was far too old for that album to resonate with me, but it just, and that was my go-to album for that year, and it's still on regular rotation. And somehow that album specifically just is that's up there now with my classic albums of my life.
Great choice. I legitimately don't think they have a bad album. They have some that aren't as interesting or as memorable, but none of them where you're like, that was crap.
What was the last thing they did?
The last album? That's a good question. I mean, Susie had a solo album, which I absolutely loved as well, because one of the songs sounds like James Bond.
What type of era is that? Is that in the last 10 years?
No. Noughties, wasn't it?
It was
2070 or something.
Yeah, maybe around then. Kind of around the time I moved to Liverpool, I think. So yeah.
I know that directly after this, the next thing she did was Interlude with Morrissey, which is one of those things. In his autobiography, he talks about the making of it, and it's just it's a bizarre thing where he seems like he's complaining about Susie Sue being this uppity snob who kind of was really distant and sort of seemed a bit up her own ass and stuff.
Yeah, that's
but
Susie.
it's just this is coming from Morrissey of all people, and he just comes across as this innocent victim. I was trying to be nice to her. And it's every other anecdote in this book, Morrissey, is you saying you were trying to be nice to people and them treating you like shit. There's a common denominator here in all these.
I didn't even know they did a song together. Is it a song?
Yeah, they did a single. It was a cover of, I'm not too sure who did the original, but a song called Interlude. It came out. It was her next single after this, and it was actually a pretty good tune. I don't know as well because he sprung to mind because John was talking about sounding having a song sound like a Bond theme. In Morrissey's book, he describes Interlude as being like a Bond theme and stuff as well. So
not as much
maybe Susie was trying to drop a hint of been well, I am doing movies now. Maybe if you want to hire me.
Well, the last to answer Ricky's question, the last Susie and the Banshees record was The Rapture in 1995.
Oh, that's going back.
Yeah, I mean, she did a solo thing, well into the 2000s.
There's Creatures as well, which was kind of not interchangeable.
Yeah.
That's her and one of the Banshees, and it sounds pretty similar. And
very
I think
similar.
they're probably active long.
Oh,
worth listening to.
Yeah, it's great. If you like Susie and the Banshees, you'll enjoy it.
I don't think there is a bad album. As I said, I really like Tinderbox. That's a fantastic album. That's a mid-80s.
Yeah, that's the other one I'm familiar with.
Yeah. That was the thing though. This, so I did some digging. I was kind of had my eyes open a little as well because I know that the people we hang about with and stuff would obviously know Susie Sue because we're part of the quote unquote alternative scene and whatnot. When everywhere you go out, you're going to hear Hong Kong Garden at least once somewhere. But I always had that vibe of oh well, this is obviously because this was a Tim Burton choice. He deliberately approached her and was I want Susie Sue to do a song for the movie.
Oh, because he loves the Banshees, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Of course he does.
But and now it's him to kind of he didn't want Prince in the first movie. They had that hoisted upon him, so he's kind of oh, I'm going to go out and get whoever I want to do it. And I kind of thought because of she's the Banshees are I kind of took them to be they're a very cult band. They're not huge hit makers and stuff. They're known, but they're not superstars.
Yeah.
And so looking into them though, but apparently in America they were pretty pretty damn big. Like they had at least 2 number 1 singles, and one had just come out before they made this movie as well.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, they had Peekaboo and Kiss Them For Me both got the number 1 in the US charts and stuff. So
really,
I guess
you know what though?
That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah. I always took it to be that like maybe. Like Tim Burton was like, he would go to the studio like, I'm getting Susie Sue, and they're like, oh my god, what are you doing? You're crazy. That's not gonna work. No one's gonna buy a Susie Sue single.
It was the opposite.
But it turns, apparently it was like,
dead weird songs to get to number 1 as well.
That's crazy.
I'm really quite proud of the American record buying.
You know what? As the older I get, and I don't know if it's a combination of the internet and also disappearing out from my own self-involved miasma of youth, but like anything that I ever thought was, I'm onto something that's vaguely underground and vaguely alternative there, that I ever semi-congratulated myself for, I have since had that illusion shattered. Everybody knows who Susie Sue is. Everybody listens to Nick Cave. Everybody's read Alan Moore comics. There's nothing like underground or alternative about any of it. It's all just absolutely mainstream.
I was exactly the same when I discovered like Marilyn Manson. That's like, I'm unique. Turns out, no, there's millions of people into it.
Yeah.
But no, it's weird that, because I mean, this song in the UK singles chart, it peaked at number 21. Which, I mean, this is back in the day though, where getting to number 21 in the chart was an achievement. These days, I could probably release a song and get to 21. But, that
was the kind of the shock I had as well, because I assumed, like, well, Susie's, like, the band she's from, they're an English band. They must have done much, much better in the UK, but I think their highest rating was number 3 for Dear Prudence. I was like, I guess that is their most well-known song over here, but, like, really? I kind of assumed like, they would have been, they must have been smashing it back in the 80s, but, like, no, they're all, like, 17, 21, all these kind of chart positions and stuff. But then, that got the number 3. It was an eye-opening experience.
Is it well known to people in England that they did that song?
I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so. But I'm coming at it from a biased position of a huge fan who, as Niall said, is in the alternative community. So I think of like... I don't know, like weird songs like Staircase Mystery and things, Well,
you're in that position, like once you're in a band, like, I know probably most of us here are probably, big Devo fans, but most of the general public was like, oh, Devo's Whip It. That's the only song they ever did.
No.
Whereas now, if you're into Devo, Whip It's is like the lowest rung of like they did that as well. That's kind of a thing. Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good song, but there's about 100 better.
Yeah, that's just, you always have that. It's a difficulty once you're entrenched in something. You always have a sort of like a distance from what the John Q public, who's not all that interested in this particular thing, the way they perceive it and stuff. But I
suppose there is the problem as well with Susie and well, the Banshees as a whole, I guess. She was very associated with punk because they were a punk band.
Yeah.
And she was at the forefront of, how do I put it, doing the thing where you ironically wear swastikas and things like that.
Oh, was she? Bloody hell,
she was the first one. She was the first one to do that kind of thing.
Popularized it, right?
And we're right back to Nazis again.
Yeah, it's full circle. So she would wear like Nazi armbands while in fetish wear with her breasts out. And that was her aesthetic back in the late 70s, and so maybe there was a little bit of a problem with that. And she was on the Bill Grundy show with the Sex Pistols.
maybe there was a problem with that. Maybe.
People didn't understand necessarily the artistic intent of that.
The thing that I always think, especially because I'm presuming that the era that was happening was she would have been in her like early 20s.
Yes.
Now, and I'm not saying this as a defense of that because I don't think it's defensible, but there's something kind of to be said for when you're in your youth, you're not responsible for the world that you suddenly find yourself in.
I get that, yeah.
And suddenly you find yourself in this world where there's all kinds of societal and cultural baggage associated with icons and words and all these things, and you didn't create any of it, and all of a sudden you're expected to adhere to the protocols of it. And I think it's only natural to a certain extent, not necessarily to that extent, to want to rebel against that and be like, no, I'm just me here now. I don't want to take responsibility for all of that. It's not something that I think you can do for very long, because inevitably as you get older, you kind of become complicit in perpetuating all of the baggage for the next generation. But I can understand, if not agree with, young people wanting to kind of cast off that responsibility.
You've almost perfectly explained her position on it, because she wanted to... Well, as I say, it was kind of an ironic thing. It was... recontextualizing the images, like removing them from the meaning, was the, let's be cheesy, the stupid artistic kind of over the top thing. It's like, I'm going to take this symbol and give it a new meaning, but at the same time, it's like deliberately a bit like, well, I'm being shocking, aren't I?
I was wondering because it reminds me a little bit. Was a comedian a couple of years back who was going around with the Hitler mustache.
Oh, it's Richard Herring.
Yeah, it was Richard Herring. Yeah, just the whole thing of like, well, this was a big thing before Hitler. Why should he own this mustache? I'm taking it back. But I don't know how long that lasted though.
It became quite nuanced. That he did a show which you can buy on Go Faster Stripe, and it becomes quite nuanced. Like, he finds himself walking along the street, and there's an Orthodox Jewish person, and he can tell that the Orthodox Jewish person is really startled and disturbed to see somebody walking down, and he's suddenly like, okay, I didn't want it to be like this. I really didn't want to put anyone in that position. He doesn't out and out go, I did. He has moments of self-reflection throughout that. It's worth listening to.
Oh, that sounds very good recommendation.
So I'd be remiss, like you were talking about, like, Susie Sue wearing fetish gear and Nazi regalia. But then, of course, you have, in one of the most infamous Batman books, The Dark Knight Returns, a major character in it who goes around in fetish gear with, like, swastika tape over her boobs and stuff like that. I wonder if there was, in Frank Miller's head, if he had ever seen Susie Sue, or maybe that's what thing he was going for.
Maybe.
Could have all tied in.
The problem with Dark Knight was I always thought that all those characters were to kind of poke fun at the right and the left in the media, in that everyone was like a caricature on those news programs in Dark Knight Returns. But hearing more about Frank Miller, I don't think he thought the people on the right wing were caricatures at all in those comics. I think he agreed entirely with the people on the right wing, and he was just caricature. He just was a caricature of the right wing, and he also drew caricatures of the left wing.
Yeah, sadly, yeah.
Now, Frank Miller is a guy. It's just like, as the years go by, it's just like, no, what are you doing? Yeah. No. Then you get to like Holy Terror, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I say caricature. Is that less correct?
What am I saying?
You're saying caricature
because my name's Richard.
That's
not true.
Of course,
that's not true.
Richard.
So. There is a scene very much similar to this in The Dark Knight Rises, isn't there? With Selina and Bruce.
That's in that scene. And again, we've poo-pooed The Dark Knight Rises quite a bit in the show, even though I defend it as a movie. But
I like it. I mean, I don't like it, but I get why you defend it.
But there's like the thing is like, as we've mentioned here, like one of the genius points of this whole scenario is that, like, these are the two people who are unmasked in the mask ball, because they're normal going out, they're constantly wearing masks, and this is the one time they've come in their disguises as quote unquote normal people and stuff like that. Whereas in that scene in The Dark Knight Rises, it's as if Chris Nolan, I kind of want to reference that scene, but he didn't understand it. He didn't get it. Yeah, because Bruce Wayne's there without a mask, but Selina's wearing the Catwoman mask, and it's a bit like, I just wanted to have her in a Catwoman mask at some point. It's like, you're not getting the nuance of that scene, though, Chris. It's gonna, you're making like an empty
wouldn't she look
reference.
Sexy if she had this mask on? Yeah. I can't really remember the scene. Is that the scene where Selina gives the speech about how all the rich people have been rich for too long, and one day totally not a metaphor for the Occupy movement is going to come and have you all off?
It has the one of the lines of dialogue that I wish that they could just forever ban from movies. Like, there's certain lines of dialogue to where it's just like, nope. Like, ever mentioning that someone's the key to something. It's like, it's such a cliche now. And then she, at one point, goes, "There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne." It's like, no.
That's Terminator.
No, but it's everything. It's been used so much. It's like, you can't say there's a storm coming. You can't write that in a script now without stopping yourself and going, that is the most cliched friggin' metaphor for
in my
there's
head,
trouble brewing. You know?
If I hear that in my head, I'm just going, dun 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 dun. Dun dun dun
This
dun.
summer.
I mean, like, I always actually associate it with a more recent movie is Serenity, because that ends in the note of like River and Mal looking out, and she's like storm's getting heavier, and he's like, "Oh, we'll pass through it soon enough." That's kind of like a nice. It's a progression of there's a storm coming. Yeah. It means the same thing, kind of, but it's also adding something else. But now it's like 10 years after that. It's like, no more storm metaphors. All right, think of a new metaphor. Damn it.
There's a cold front approaching.
There you go, screenwriters. Take that on board and credit.
There's a chilly gale coming.
Dogger rising westerly.
Well, on a different note, you referenced, of course, Tim Burton being into Susie and the Banshees, and I had one other note here was because in the song Susie can be heard purring a little bit like a cat, of course, like Catwoman. And Tim Burton has stated, I've always been a fan. Susie is one of the very few women who can create a realistic primal cat sound. I get that. I've heard her do this kind of thing, but it's good that he's a fan and he's gone, not only am I a fan, but this is the perfect person. The perfect person.
What about Yoko Ono?
Oh, Yoko could also have contributed.
Some of those wails are distinctly like when my toddler steps on my cat.
I could totally hear Yoko at least contributing to the soundtrack. Yeah,
I kind of want to hear.
I don't just want to go on. Sorry, I don't want to just for the record. I'm all right with Yoko Ono. I don't just want to be another person pulling the boot in Yoko Ono.
Thinking now, I just want to hear like Bjork's version of Face to Face of her doing Bjork doing that purr. It's like how that.
That would be amazing.
Don't know what.
Imagine though, if Tim Burton had kept pursuing Batman movies into the 90s, who else would he have got to do? Because he could have got to like Batman 3 and been like, yeah, Bjork. It's 95. Bjork's the thing. I like her.
Republica.
Oh. Well, it's not long till you've got the Smashing Pumpkins on the soundtrack.
That is true. That is.
And I'm a huge fan of the Smashing Pumpkins. So.
It's funny. I don't know because they recorded so recently. I might just cut them out of the episodes. But we keep having to say, and it's getting worse and worse every week. With like one of the last things we'll ever talk about in Batman at the show, in the end credits of Batman and Robin, is R. Kelly's "Gotham City," the song. And of course, we're going to have to address.
Is that for this film? No, it's not for this film. No,
it's for the final movie.
Don't know. I allowed myself to think it might be this.
Oh, I really don't want to have to talk about R. Kelly, but it's coming. It's coming.
That's for the Adam West one, isn't it? That's the original Adam West one, isn't it?
I mean, I could at least sidetrack it into he does a song with Lady Gaga that's all right. But at the same time, she does the same song with Christina Aguilera, and it's better.
As either of those
for at least two reasons, it's better.
Yes, for many reasons.
I can even imagine now if Tim Burton was doing it nowadays, he'd be like, Lady Gaga, she could do a Batman song. I'll be interested to hear that as well. But
I mean, that
was a perfect response of just.
I like her.
To do the score.
I don't want her in
Danny
Batman.
Elfman to do the score to what?
If Tim Burton made a Batman film today,
Who
I think he'd get that Danny Elfman one to do the score.
Oh, yeah.
Who could do the songs though these days? Like a current artist.
I have to ring up Tim Burton and be like, "Who are you into these days?"
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm really into R. Kelly. Like, no, damn it, Tim.
The Lovely Eggs.
The Lovely Eggs. Oh, yeah, okay.
That'll be good.
I'm trying to think like
Uber no effects
goth.
from it.
I'm thinking like there's a kind of post-punky goth artist, Drab Majesty. I'm thinking that.
Double Echo, I think, is what we're driving towards, isn't
Double
it?
Echo, of course. Tim.
When you make next Batman film next year,
message him on the internet and tell him.
Basically, what we want, Ash, is you to contact Tim Burton and say, let's work together. Let's make a new Batman. And he'll say yes.
And you can read. I'll email him, and you can read out the email that he sends in return.
Because we all know Tim listens to the podcast.
I do kind of want to try to get the message to Tim, because we've discovered through like doing this show that people are very, very much interested in some sort of Tim Burton doing or any kind of return to the Burtonverse. And the fact that that guy's working on Beetlejuice 2, a movie that nobody wants.
No, and I love Beetlejuice. I don't want that.
Yeah, but it's just like,
it's too late.
wish you could get the information to them. It's like, people are interested in you doing Batman again. They're not interested in this. Leave that out altogether. But go do something with Batman, and people will go to see that. But
the talk is Batman, and when I say the talk, I mean people saying what they want on the internet, not what's actually happening in Hollywood, is Batman Beyond, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
With Michael Keaton being Bruce Wayne, but as the passing the torch Bruce Wayne.
I think he'd have to pass the torch at this point. He's too old to just be, it's a new Batman movie. That would be weird. He's got to at least be doing that stereotypical, I'm getting too old.
That's my favorite Batman, is not like, it's more in the comics, this is the Batman. I think you've referenced it in the past, Ash. Batman Batman just too old to be doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I love those ones. He's always just like, that was stupid.
Yeah, and
I shouldn't have done that. Oh, that hurt. Oh, God.
Yeah. And there's just that extra layer to it, and it's like, oh yeah, he can't. Yeah, that extra him reprimanding himself throughout all of his fight scenes. Yeah, as opposed to youthful, sprightly Batman.
Lucky, only broke one rib.
There is
always the ribs. It's always his ribs.
There is an extra dimension to that I really like. I think, especially as I now age.
That was the cool thing about Judge Dredd, is that they made Judge Dredd age in real time. So Judge Dredd now is in his late 70s, and that's part of the story. Seriously? And they've not it goes year by year. I can't remember what year it was that the first Judge Dredd story was, but every year since 1977 when it started, the years have progressed in Mega City 1, and obviously he has access to better technology, so he's a healthy 70-odd-year-old. But it's still a big part of the storyline, is like, can he still be doing this?
It's kind of like, it benefits, though, the fact that he's so kind of, people would link him with like Clint Eastwood, because he's that type of character. Clint's like definitely 250 million years old, and he's still cracking on. So you're like, well, Clint is doing it, so I can picture Judge Dredd still doing it, because I've seen that guy do it and stuff. So.
Yeah, at the NRA conference.
Yeah. Again, though, if any comic character would be going to an NRA conference, probably Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, back in the minute, Selina spots Bruce, and as I say, they walk slowly to each other.
Are we only up to there?
We're only up to there. But then they meet. And all the eroticism fizzles away in an instant, because they both just go, hi. Everything just dissipates.
I like that. I think it's
that's realistic,
especially with Bruce. Yeah, it's real. It makes you believe the relationship a bit more. That Bruce is kind of like, oh yeah, I jibbed her off the other day, but I still really like her, so I'm going to try and play it cool. But I've definitely got to say sorry, so I'm going to open with the sorry, but I'm still going to try and seem cool, and I'm going to avoid eye contact because I'm Bruce Wayne and I'm mentally scarred, so I can't really look at people when I'm talking to them. And it's got all of that going on. It's I find it endearing and charming, but only with these characters, only with these actors.
I do kind of like the way as well. Like, we didn't really address it in the build-up, but like, Bruce's whole thing is like, yeah, I'm going to this because maybe Selina Kyle might be there. And it's like, you've been on a date with her. You could just call her.
No, like, you got to play cool, man. You got to play cool.
For one thing, it's like, we do know for the fact that Selina Kyle's phone is broken because we saw her break it. So maybe that's why it's like, oh, you can't ring her.
Yeah.
But I guess there is also the thing of like, maybe Bruce is so socially stunted that this is like, he could, like, I could find a way to contact her where I could literally just be like, yeah, I'm coming and getting you or whatever. But this is more like, yeah, it would be really awkward and weird. So if I just happen to be at this party, and she just happens to be at this party, it's much more like it's kind of like an easy in rather than me having to come out and up front just be like, hi, so that other night was weird, huh? And all that kind of thing.
That's how you play it, right? Mm-hmm. I've done the same thing when I was 17.
Also, that time I asked you if you wanted to go to that party, John. You said no, and then I tore up the RSVP.
Oh yeah.
And then a second later, you're like, "Oh, wait a minute!" I was like, "Oh, you asshole! What the hell?"
Exactly. No, when I was 17, I liked a girl at school, so I just, I was like, well, I'll just kind of happen to bump into her a lot, and that'll naturally strike up conversation, and it did. Exactly like what Bruce is doing. It's like, oh, hello, fancy seeing you here again, eating lunch.
You see him now, he's just taking out his little book of like John Parker's dating advice. He has a little book of it in his jacket pocket that he's like, all right, okay, just flipping the pages.
Well, you say this, but it worked. But then after 3 weeks, we split up. So it didn't work for very long.
It doesn't work out for these two either. So I guess it's an accurate formula.
In probably less than 3 weeks. I mean, the timeline in this movie is quite vague, though. But in the minute here, we have Selina and Bruce both making excuses for why they had to bail on their date. And Bruce says that a big deal fell through, which is believable and sensible.
I mean, to be fair, that ice princess did fall through the air.
Yes, exactly. He's not lying.
That was a big deal.
But Selina says that she bailed because she had to feed the cat. Now, and as a devoted cat owner who sees my cat as my child, I put her above humans. Now, even I think this is a bit crazy and unrealistic. Because
I'm seeing you carrying the cat above humans and Niall carrying the baby above humans.
Exactly.
But
I mean, it's been specified in the movie that they're having an early dinner. So that they're having an early dinner to begin with. So I'm sure that cat could have waited like another damn hour for its tea. Come on.
That's because she's saying she's got to feed her cat, but she's only pretending she's got a cat as opposed to like all the cats.
There are about 5 million cats, yeah.
So it's going to take a little bit longer to feed all of them, and it's more complicated than just,
because they're all going around your legs as you're getting the thing out the thing, and it's not they don't leave you to it as you're getting out, do they? So it's like they slow it down, and that
genuinely is the rest of their evening. Like.
Luckily, my cat is she's very nice and respectful. She sits and waits politely for her food. I have no issues.
See, I felt back because my gutter mind when she's like, oh, I had to feed my cat. I'm like, is that a euphemism for something?
Oh, no.
And then when she goes on to say she's got a semi-hard-on, I always think, is that a double entendre?
Look, she's got a semi and she had to feed the cat.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were getting into some heavy petting, and then they kind of left each other with blue balls, so...
True.
She could say that as a legitimate excuse. It's like, I had to go finish myself off.
Gotta go feed the old cat.
Yeah.
What was that? It was like Yosemite Sam or something. Gotta feed the old cat.
It's my sleazy voice.
Remember, John was a teenager and he had to crack one out. They would just leave the room by going, "I'm gonna feed the old cat." His parents were just like, "Oh my god."
That's in his chat up lines. Is John's 17-year-old chat up lines.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Feed the old cat. What turns anyone on more than that? Come on, man or woman.
But we're pretty much at the end of the minute here because we're going late on to the night here now for recording. So.
Yes, we are.
We should probably wrap this up. Really,
I will point out.
I can't believe how much of a panic I was in about having enough things to talk about, and it's like, God, no, the effort is not talking about things.
You're with the right people. We can come to this show with 3 notes and spend 5 hours. Well, before we depart one final time this week into the dark, dark night, would you both like to tell our listeners where they can find you online or anything you have produced or put out there? Because Rikky, you have your own music. You said it's been a while, but it doesn't matter. People can still get hold of it. And Ash, you also lots of wonderful music. So would you like to promote anything?
The album Juju by Susie and the Banshees is well worth a listen. If you're not familiar with it, get on the old Spotify.
Do it.
It's you won't regret.
And if you enjoy the music of Susie and the Banshees, you might well also enjoy the music of Double Echo, which plows a similar post-punk furrow. And if you're listening, Tim Burton, next year when you make Batman 3, you can give me an email to my Deezer inbox and let me know that you want me to do the soundtrack for Batman 3 2000.
Make sure you do, Tim, because I'm sure you're listening to this with your Sunday brunch. You're having pancakes, you're having eggs and bacon. You've got your Bat Minute on, and you're like, this guy sounds good. He is good. They are good. Check them out, everyone, including Tim. And also check out Ash. You have millions of other things. You Zombina and the Skeletons. You were in the band White Blackula, who I think we promoted.
El
last
Toro was the band that you were in the Gormont Cinema with. Was that who you performed with him?
No, we did play that. We recorded a live session in the Gormont Cinema, which is on the YouTubes. El Toro. I can't remember what song it was, but Google all my bands: El Toro, Zombina and the Skeletons, Double Echo, Dick Limerick Academy with Richard in it, who's the other fella. And
Hello.
The other fella.
You seem to really forget my name for a second there, mate. And of course,
it was mainly me. And, then, and he just did the rapping.
I did the rapping, and of course your karaoke night every Saturday.
Oh, and always go to my karaoke night.
Do, and if a listener comes to that karaoke night when I am there, come and speak to me, and I will buy you a pint.
You can do the Susie and the Banshees song from this.
Yes, I will, despite being terrible at singing, I will join you on the karaoke.
I can
song of your
say,
choice.
though, from frequenting this karaoke, that song is not in the list because I've checked for it.
Ash can
So-
get
it's
it.
not. I could maybe get the instrumental if somebody's got the words memorized, they could.
What about Kiss from a Rose? You got that?
Got Kiss from a Rose.
That's there.
Niall did Kiss from a Rose.
There you go.
And
All good.
It was very good.
beautiful. It was
And
wonderful.
also, I've been eyeing up. I think next time I've been working on my dance moves to try "Jungle Love" by the time. So I'm gonna see if I
brilliant.
can accurately pull that off on stage.
Do you have a large mirror that John can hold and walk past?
Hopefully, I can pop into the 24-hour Asda on the way there to pick one up.
To be honest, I am tempted to do. I believe I saw on the song list was Shawn Michaels' theme song "Sexy Boy."
Yeah, somebody made me put that on there because they wanted
That
to
is
sing
one of
it.
the greatest tunes of all time, and I know every lyric. I say every lyric. There's about 5, but
You can edit this out, but you know what you should really put on that? Your Woman by Whitetown.
I think no, it's on there. That's on
Is
there.
it really?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that would be
Come and sing it.
Yeah, come and sing it.
Well, listeners, listen to all the bands we've mentioned, all the music we've mentioned, and come to the karaoke night for wonderful, wonderful fun and a free pint from me. Niall might not buy you a pint, but he might just give you a slap or something, which is just as important, just
I
as
will
wonderful.
sing you a song of your choice. I'll give you that.
And Niall is a genuinely good singer, whereas I am not. So that's a much better prize. So do that. Come along, everybody, to the Evil Eye Beer and Burrito Bar. Is that the full title?
I believe so.
I believe so. Come along on Liverpool on Smithdown Road and join us again on Monday. We will have more Bat Minute. We will have minute 97. Believe it or not, I can't believe we're that far through. What the hell's going on now? We're near the end.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Final act, baby.
Final act. And in the meantime, do talk to us. We love chatting to fans. We're on Facebook at the Bat Minute Listeners Cave. We're on Twitter at Bat Minute, Instagram, Bat Minute, blah, blah, blah. We're everywhere. Just look us up and review us on iTunes. If you want to be very nice and helpful, buy a t-shirt, a mug, or even, we have sold one of these, a baby grow on our TeePublic page.
Oh, yeah, I know who bought that baby girl.
Yes, we know who bought the baby grow, and thank you very much, because we have to spread this to all of the children.
Of course, keep your eye out for the upcoming strict draft excluders that we're currently...
Yes, the strict draft excluders coming soon to a TeePublic near you. And join us again on Monday.
Next time, is that a gun in your garter or are you just pleased to see me? Selina suggests a dalliance on a commodious Davenport as our star-crossed lovers continue to cavort. But while an inquiry into incentive goes down a treat, is Bruce's perfect paramour about to reveal she's packing heat? Find out next week. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.